Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, it is I, the one and only Maxi here, and I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our brand new Let's Play for the channel, and this time around we're going on to the Game Boy Color of all things. Not Game Boy, but Game Boy Color. And meaning about the fact that we are tackling through the next Wario Land game, and this time we hit on to Wario Land 2 for the Game Boy/Game Boy Color. And as you can tell from the quality standpoint, I'm playing this on the Game Boy Color, just because it's kind of nice to be able to actually see the actual more color to it. Although there is generally the forms of the original Game Boy version, as I said, but all it got is just basically it's like black and white kind of color to it. So either way though, and of course much like in the original Wario Land 1 and Virtual Boy Wario Land, I'm basically going to be playing this on the emulator. So because of this though, although trying to do this though is actually kind of difficult for multiple reasons, which I'll talk more about that once we get into the later portions of this game. So because of this though, yeah, the story begins about the fact that one of those Captain Syrup's Goonies is about to be able to up to its no good, and they try to able to actually steal not only a whole bunch of money, well, from Wario's castle anyway, but also they try to able to flood Wario's castle. So because of this though, and while we're at it, that basically they're just trying to place this very peculiar alarm clock enemy, which either way though, we'll talk more about that when we able to actually get into it. And of course, it'll able to actually cause a lot of noise, and yeah. And while we're at it, I think Wario is just asleep. So because of this though, yeah, differently from the previous Wario Land games is the fact that we actually broken up into chapters. So in this case, the first chapter we have is One Noisy Morning, and here we go with the first story, which is Turn Off the Alarm Clock. And you can either do it from either waking up, obviously, and there's also another alternative way to finish the level, which I'll talk more details about that whenever we get into later progressioning for this Let's Play. So because of this though, oh wow, somehow I realized I got about 100 coins straight off the bat. Because, basically, I'll talk more about that in a second. So because of this though, yeah, this is Wario Land 2 for the Game Boy/Game Boy Color. I believe this game first came out in 1998 in the original Game Boy version, and I'm presuming a year later in the Game Boy Color version. Although, mind you, I'm playing this on the Game Boy Color version because you can definitely tell from the actual quality standpoint, it looks a little bit more colorful and just vibrant, all things considered. So because of this though, yeah, this is Wario Land 2, as I said. If you ever played the forms of the previous Wario Land games before, most notably the first game and the Virtual Boy Wario Land game, you do realize it's the fact that, oh wow, we actually got ourselves another 100 coins, which this meaning about the fact that if you come across into these yellow coins, as you can tell, obviously it just gives you 1 coin. However, if you're trying to obtain this silver rare coin, basically it actually gives you 100 coins. And sometimes it can be a bit random though, every time if you're trying to able to hunt down for those rare silver coins in this game, which I'll point it out whenever we get into the forms of what these coins are used for, specifically in this game this time around, because remember the forms of in Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, then obviously I do have to collect a lot of coins depending on the actual ending, and that can be also say applies to Virtual Boy Wario Land on the Nintendo Virtual Boy. So I think this game came out after Virtual Boy Wario Land and before Wario Land 3 for the Game Boy Color exclusive. So because of that though, again, we'll talk more about Wario Land 3 at some point during this autumn. So either way though, because obviously today's day is of course the 2nd of June today, in this case in 2021, and it looks like that we only got about 10 more days to go until the biggest long-awaited event is going to be up, which is of course the E3 announcements, which I was like really excited, and also there does have a lot of speculations going on at the moment, especially noticeable despite that we only got about 10 days left until the actual main event will start to happen. So either way though, and I'm actually super excited about it. So anyway, and by the way, if you come across into these Wario coins, you know the one that I managed able to come across into during those specific secret rooms, Basically, it's the fact that it actually gives you like 10 coins or something, even though it has been a while since I actually did manage to play this game from time to time. Mainly it's because I was been busy playing some other things, you see. Like, for instance, I've managed to able to still play new Pokemon Snap and all that stuff, which is a really, really great game, by the way. And, yeah, that's what I got, basically. So, for my first experience of well, let's just say Wario Land 2, I should say. My first experience with this game is the fact that someone did done a Let's Play of the game. Actually, I'll get into more details about that later, because if we hit in here, this is where we come across into our treasure mini games of any sort. So you do have 3 choice of difficulties. There is hard, normal, or hard. Depending on how which difficulty you want to play, it might actually cost a lot of coins, basically. So in this case, though, yeah, it's probably best if you're trying to able to keep on collecting more coins if you really want to collect treasures. Which, yes, treasures do make a return ever since the previous 2 Wario Land games. That remember the forms of how the fact that in the previous 2 games, you could have to do a lot of exploration, and then in the original game for sure, basically that you're gonna have to able to obtain a key, and then trying to able to unlock the treasure room, and also you need to be on bigger sized Wario, because with small Wario, it will not able to actually budge up the forms of the treasure chest that's been opened. Whilst the forms of Virtual Boy Wario Land, you have to explore a lot, especially noticeable if you're able to actually come across into hidden rooms and all that stuff. That way you would able to actually find a treasure, and basically you can able to obtain a treasure without needing a key, because the key in Virtual Boy Wario Land is required to move on to the next elevator. So anyway, for the treasure requirements this time around, though, is the fact that, well, you still need to find some of these treasures during the course of specific doors that you have to entering for, but to be more specifically, you need to able to participate in a mini game. And if you're trying to able to do the correct if you find the correct panel, as what it's shown on the actual the lock pad, basically you can able to obtain a treasure. So because of that, though, as I said before, there are 3 difficulties on that minigame, such as hard, normal, and easy. Easy is by far is the most expensive price difficulty you can able to actually bet on, and then the cheapest one of them all, though, is hard mode, which the only differences between the actual 3 difficulties is the speed, timing that you're gonna have to able to memorize and such. And as far as normal mode is concerned, it actually costs about 100. So because of that, though, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory if you're actually trying to get the hang of it. And as I said before, you do need to require a lot of coin collected for this point, because if you really want to go for 100% in the game, not only do you have to go for the forms of this particular treasure minigame, as I said, but also there's going to be another minigame which it will happen by the end of each stage. So because of this, though, now as far as for me anyway, though, I'm obviously going to be going for 100% completion, just in case if I want to show you guys specific locations or specific treasures that you can find, and you probably name the rest. So in this first level, as you can see, the main objective in this is the fact that we need to just get rid of the alarm clock, and that's all you have to do. So yeah, it's a pretty simple mission when you get the hang of this, though, because yes, I say missions because, you know, most of these stages in this game this time around, though, is divided into not only for chapters, for its leniency and stuff like that, but also, it's all about mission structure at the same time. So because of that, though, you're gonna have to come across into a different amount of missions when if you get into later progressioning for this particular Let's Play itself. So anyway, as you can see, we now ended up in the forms of the second minigame, which, as I said before, it only happens in during the forms of when if you finish up the main levels themselves. Basically, you're gonna have to able to bet 50 coins each in each panel. And basically, that's if you're trying to able to guess which number does it shown in these little flip cards. Basically, if you manage to able to guess the correct answer, you guess that was the actual piece for something, which I'll talk more about that later. So turn off the giant faucet, in this case, stage 2. So in this case, though, in this particular level right there is the fact that it's going to be filled to the brim with water. So because of that, though, much like the original Wario Land 1, and I could assure to you, possibly, oh yeah, and also this applies to Virtual Boy Wario Land as well, basically, much like the previous two games, is that you can able to swim. So because of that, though, everything else plays out exactly the same thing as the previous two games for sure. However, there's one noticeable difference this time around, though, is the fact that this game no longer has power-ups, like, you know, Jet Wario, Bull Wario, Dragon Wario, you name the rest. However, it's been replaced by the forms of transformations if you come across into several enemies and all that stuff. Like, it has become noticeable in this game, along with Wario Land 3, Wario Land 4, and possibly Wario Land, the Shake Dimension for sure. And as you can see, this is one of the first transformations you're able to come across into, which appears to be the Flamed Wario. And you can only do that if you touch the flame by that enemy right there. This will be useful in some parts, especially noticeable with these fire blocks, as you can see right there. And this will only be destroyed if you actually become flammable. So because of this though, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of times you're gonna able to do this kinds of stuff like this, especially noticeable again if you really want to you know, 100% the whole entire game. Well, basically, you're gonna able to do a lot of things. It's like multitasking, basically, which I'm fine with that, because honestly, out of all the actual Wario Land games I actually did manage to play, this one is definitely one of my favorites. Mainly it's because of how the fact that, although sure, it's a bit short in most areas, but aside from all that stuff though, is the fact that, well, it wasn't until whenever we get on to Wario Land 3 that it might actually be my second favorite. Well, I would say for this point right now, because either way though, because that game does have a lot of interesting ideas for sure, but it also does manage to contain a lot of backtracking aspect, and especially noticeable about the fact that if you really want to able to obtain more stuff, even especially noticeable for some level progressions, well, by all means you can able to actually just noticing this. So, and here's the treasure room right here. So because of that though, we can able to, I think we'll go up for the challenge for a bit by selecting, forget it, I was just gonna select easy, because I was expecting if I was gonna do easy for the majority of the time, but because it actually costs so much coins, so because of that though, I think at this point until likely the next few levels up ahead, I'm also go out for the challenge by going for normal mode. So because of that though, as for hard mode on the other hand though, oh boy, that will be something else. And the treasure I've got appears to be by the forms of a bed. So that seems kind of something. So, another thing is worth mentioning for this point as well is the fact that, obviously we've only got about, I would say, 23 days to go until Mario Golf Super Rush will be on its way for the Nintendo Switch, which I'm still excited for, even though I do need able to finish up with, new Pokemon Snap first before I'm able to actually play, you know, Mario Golf Super Rush, along with the forms of some, announcement titles coming up in the future, so because of that though, it should be exciting. So, and by the way, with this enemy right there, you do need to use the enemies as projectiles and then just trying to able to get rid of these little slimy-like looking enemies and stuff like that, and then able to actually get ourselves progression. So, I'm pretty sure these enemies will respawn if you manage to able to go to the next room and go back to the previous room for sure. But, you probably get the idea when it comes to old school video games these days, even with, like, you know, respawning enemies and all that stuff though, which should be expected by this point, so. And this level is super duper quick, and basically you just have to turn off the faucet, and that's all you have to do here. So make sure that the actual castle doesn't go completely flooded, which, it does remind me of that one particular scene from the likes of DreamWorks Ants, that basically is gonna have to able to not get killed by the flood, while despite the fact that, you know, General Mandible is trying to able to start the new colony and all that stuff though. Yeah, that's pretty much what I can say about it. I would say it is 5. Because I can tell from the actual, you know, the lack of, you know, straight lines and stuff like that. So, sometimes these minigames can be a bit tricky if you're not paying attention to what the actual number it is. So, either way though, you probably expect to see how much ridiculously hard it will get. So, alright, story 3, let the water out. So now we need to able to unflood the actual, the castle itself. So because of that though, yeah, we were able to actually collect the most insane amount of coins as we could. So, and also another differences between the previous two Wario Land games for sure, no need for extra lives, and especially noticeable there isn't any game over screens to be found. Because if you manage to get touched by an enemy, like I just did for about a few seconds ago, and especially noticeable if I come across into several of like, you know, ambushed enemies and stuff like that, basically, if I somehow manage to get into the forms of specific, you know, intervals, or specifically if I get involved with those attacks, basically, it'll just lose my coins. So because of that, though, this game might actually be the easiest Wario Land games for sure, but it does feel kind of tricky for some scenarios, mainly with, like, treasures and the minigame, gold thing. That's the only difficult part about the game, but aside from that, I think this might actually be the easiest game in the series. Well, it wasn't until whenever we get on to Wario Land, the Shake Dimension. Oh boy, with the amount of missions that you have to go through, and also several treasures that you need to obtain, it does require a lot of ridiculous things, mainly with like mission structure and all that stuff, which it does feel incredibly difficult and obnoxious at the same time if you have a first time playing the game, especially if you're not knowing what the missions are. And believe me, I am not looking forward for the actual missions for the likes of the Shake Dimension, which, again, we'll point it out whenever we get on to 2022 for sure. Well, at least if we're pretty much done with almost every single Wario platformers and stuff like that. Well, few exceptions, mind you, which is of course Wario Master of Disguise, which I still need able to actually just to figure out how am I supposed to able to do that game. So because of that though, even though that I will say Wario Master of Disguise is probably my least favorite Wario platformer game. I have no idea why. It's nothing awful or anything, it's just it feels a bit tedious to me. Especially noticeable because you have to keep on constantly need to do with like, you know, control buttons for platforming, and you're gonna have to able to take a stylus out every time if you really want to transform into something else, likely for the 7 wonders and stuff like that, or 7 transformations specifically, and it's just a bit of a busy work, I'm telling ya. But at least thankfully in Wario Master of Disguise, it might actually be kind of short, likely 10 chapters, plus few for extra chapters, so... But you know, you get the idea, or specifically episodes for the sake of time, so but I digress. And by the way, this part might be a bit irritating sometimes, mainly it's because you're gonna have to dodge a lot of bubbles, because if you dare get trapped inside the bubbles, then it actually takes you all the way back up. And the only way you can able to escape the bubbles is by just trying to pop out the bubble, is that you're gonna have to touch the ceiling, so... Although, speaking of Wario Land 3, Wario Land 3 still has that specific, no extra lives, no game over scenario. And the only thing you will lose is just, nothing. You don't lose anything if you get hit by enemies, which is kind of bizarre in theory, but, either way though, at least we'll talk more about that whenever we get onto this autumn, so... Anyways, let's go and enter this door over here, which I'm guessing that we do need to get some progression for, you know, trying to activate... Actually, there's no need for able to actually just to get any progressions there, so I guess that's something, I suppose. But anyways, let's go ahead and just be very careful not to get hit by those specific... Oh yeah, we do need to activate the switch somehow, which basically, if I somehow manage to activate the switch, basically this allows me to able to, like, get the water level going, so likely in level 2, so that way you can able to actually get some progression, so... And believe me, just like any forms of New Super Mario Bros. 2, this game is filled to the brim with coins, like literally a lot of coins to collect. Although, despite the forms of the absence of the extra lives in this game, which is totally obvious, but obviously Wario is a bit greedy for when it comes to likely obtain money, treasures, and you name the rest. And you know who else is also greedy? Well, if you couldn't tell, Mr. Krabs, because obviously he loves money so much from the likes of, well, SpongeBob SquarePants. So, either way though, in fact it has been quite a while since I actually did watch the SpongeBob SquarePants episodes these days, mainly it's because most of these episodes can get a bit downhill these days, especially noticeable where it gets to the point where some character developments, especially noticeable in some scenarios or anything else to be more specific, just feels a bit, you know, out of place to me. And especially noticeable, I do really miss the old days of SpongeBob, but that's how it is for me. Yeah, I was normally trying to able to do this on normal, but because I'm still gonna be on easy for the sake of time, and plus I keep on collecting a whole bunch of coins at this rate, so I should be able to actually still get enough coins for the sake of the end goal minigame. So, hopefully that should be the case at all, so, but I digress. And of course, that's, this game will able to have a save feature, so because of that though, it usually just auto-saves, assuming if you don't accidentally manage to able to purchase the dead battery cartridge for it, because, well, I remember back in 2018, when I somehow managed to have a lot of fun playing the forms of Wario Land 3 on my own time, and I somehow managed to lose my progress due to the forms of the dead battery for the save data, so because of that though, I was felt so upsetting when that happens, which thankfully doesn't seem the case at all in Wario Land 2, because I somehow managed to got the original cartridge version of this game, well, specifically the Game Boy Color version of the game, to be more specific, that I somehow managed to got this back in 2018, but that wasn't the first time I actually experienced Wario Land 2, because that honor goes to the forms of how the fact that, well, I somehow watched Slim Kirby's playthrough of Wario Land 2, and then once I seen the actual gameplay footage, I was like, okay, this could be a lot more fun. Especially noticeable, I can't wait to able to play this, and especially noticeable, I've also managed to got this on the 3DS Virtual Console re-release as well, so because of that though, yes, this game also came out on the 3DS as in the Virtual Console re-release, so yeah, there's not much right to home about, but it's basically based off from the Game Boy Color version, not the original Game Boy, so that's something worth noting for. Although you can still play this on the original Game Boy, because thanks to the forms of that black cartridge and stuff like that. So because of that, though, it allows you to play either the original Game Boy or Game Boy Color stuff on there. So it kind of feels like the exact same tradition when, you know, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening exists. And especially noticeable with Ants and all sorts of Game Boy games, potentially. So, and if I guess correctly, it's 9. So because of that though, thankfully I managed to get this right. So even though I'm almost low on coins at the moment, so hopefully I'll still need to able to try to obtain the ridiculous amount of coins, if possible, until in the future. So because of that though, let's move on to story 4, go down to the cellar. Now I do apologize for that background noise you'd be hearing. I think it's mainly because it's one of those aircrafts or airplanes flying about during the forms of, well, specifically forms of holiday trips or something, even though I still can't go abroad, which is kind of sucks, but either way though. Here's another one of those, transformations of how this game actually introduces ourselves, and that's what appears to be flattened Wario. And you can only just manage to able to transform into this transformation is by simply get flattened by hard objects, including some sort of like a similar Thwomp-like enemy, but it's being controlled by those little bats, as you can see. And the only way you can able to go back into its normal size is by, you know, come across into a rain drop or the water drop, or you able to actually get picked up by, let's just say, a group of bats. So yeah, you probably get the gist of it. So. And oh boy, doing this whole entire process, as I said this before, can be a bit tedious at one point, if only because of this annoying element to this stage. Oh, can I even? Okay, I can able to, you know, go back to the previous room and try again, so that way the enemy will respawn. So because of that though, I always love to able to do that. So yeah, and let's go ahead and grab some more coins there. Even though the only drawback with this is, though, is the fact that there wasn't any gold flowers to be found around here until New Super Mario Bros. 2 roll around for the 3DS does manage to become a thing. So, anyways, let's go ahead and just flatten ourselves and try to grab even more coins from that section here. Like, seriously, it is so easy to get a lot of coins in this game. Especially because I already said this before, that you do need to able to require a ridiculous amount of coins for, you know, the treasure it needs to obtain, and also If you couldn't tell already, that if you somehow manage to able to complete the Gorm-like mini-games, as I said this before, you would able to actually get your piece of, I would say, a map. Which, I have no idea what the actual map will actually functions for, but we'll find out in the future, once we're able to continue our proceedings for this particular Let's Play. So because of that though, somehow got snitched. But thankfully, if you manage to break free, that the bats will no longer bother you ever again. Oh wow, I've got my silver coin again. That seems pretty top-notch, all things considered, especially how usually I'm getting super dang lucky when it comes to likely obtaining some sort of, like, you know, collectibles like these for, like, you know, random luck, I suppose. So, oh yeah, this is the part I was talking about, when this whole entire process can be a bit obnoxious in this emulator. I'm not exactly sure if this is my fault or anything, but mainly it's because I was gonna try to able to jump and crouch and then move right, but I swear to god, it is not as easy as it looks on the emulator. I mean, sure I can do it just fine on both the 3DS and the Game Boy Advance SP during my own time whenever I do the actual practice runs with this game. Mind you, I managed to complete the game twice, by the way, so mainly with, like, you know, the 3DS first, and then the Game Boy version later on, so that way I can able to practice the controls and everything. But regardless of everything else though, with this trick right there, I was gonna able to try to do it for as a practice attempt, but sometimes I keep on getting myself screwed over every once in a while, so because of that though, yeah, this method is not as easy as it looks to me though, which I was expecting if I was trying to able to actually play this with the GameCube controller to make things a bit easier on the emulator, but I have no setups like this, so unfortunately though, I have no luck with doing this, so hopefully we would be able to just try this again, and again, this does take me a couple of practices when it comes to likely doing that, so but, you know, you get the idea about this little whole thing about that. Well, it's kind of hard to explain about this sometimes, because I know it has been quite a few days, actually, since I did manage able to done a lot of commentaries these days, even after finishing, well, you know, Donkey Kong 94, and even Banjo-Kazooie, for that matter, and especially noticeable with the forms of, well, I was trying to classify for saying, I suppose that's pretty much about it in terms of, oh yeah, and same applies to, you know, when Tiana has managed to able to finish up with Mario Party 5, oh no, sorry, Mario Party 4, but hopefully until when some toy sales can able to do Mario Party 5 at some point this weekend for that matter, so we can able to actually just to be more hyped about the next Mario Party game for the actual Let's Play department, so but anyway though, so now we've passed through that, and there's the end of the level right there, but before we get into the end of the level, I get the feeling there's gonna be a treasure room somewhere all the way to the left, but obviously it does require flattened Wario in order to able to, you know, go for this treasure room, so because of that though, although I will have to admit though right away, is the fact that some of these transformations do look cool all in all, but even for the likes of how the fact that you can able to, like, well, go for these little gaps from flattened Wario, so that way you can able to actually just don't be bothered able to go back and everything, so that's pretty cool stuff, I suppose. Even though some of these transformations like this were able to make its return until, like, you know, Wario Land 3 and Wario Land 4 for a small extent. Well, at least whenever we get into those at some point, so there we go, now we've passed through here, and this battle allows me to able to go back to its normal size again, and we'll probably go ahead and deal with the next treasure room. So because of that though, I think I might actually go for easy again, even though it feels kind of samey whenever you're trying to go for easy mode, but I was gonna able to try to save up a lot of coins for my disposal, but I just have no idea. But anyway, I think it's on the second box. There we go, so now we've been able to accomplish that, and this will actually give me this little weird vase or something? Which, I know it has been a while since I actually played this game, which I haven't not exactly sure what that treasure is. So, either way though, now we've got that out of the way, and let's leave the level. And basically, it'll give us, you know, a grand total of 502 coins, so that way it should able to give me enough coins to able to actually fill up the entire, well, number itself, even though the maximum amount you can only spend on, I think it was actually like 450 coins total if you manage to spend all of those tiles, so yeah, it seems a little bit pricey. I think I might as well take the answer is 2. Not 6, but 2. So there we go. Nicely done, and we got ourselves our 4th piece of the map. So potentially speaking, I think there are a grand total of like 50 pieces to collect. So, and also there's going to be 50 treasures throughout the whole game. So, anyways, so now we move on to story number 5, defeat the giant snake. And sure enough, we're able to conclude story 1, which obviously, if you couldn't tell from story 1 represents, it's going to take place in, obviously, in Wario's castle. So because of this though, I've no idea why, that I thought that we did manage to already achieve Planetoid from the likes of the previous Wario Land game, which is of course Wario Land Super Mario Land 3, in this case the perfect ending, but somehow we managed to able to go into Wario's castle instead, which I'm guessing that's like, well, it's kind of hard to explain, because it, you know, it has been a while since I actually played this game, so anyway though. Oh yeah, at some points during at the very end of each chapter, obviously, much like the previous games for sure, basically we'll come across into ourselves these boss fights, which I'll talk more about that in a second. Here's another transformation here, which appears to be Zombie Wario. And this can only be obtained if you manage to get touched by these actual zombie-like creatures. Well, assuming if they touch you. And basically, the only way you can able to go back into its normal self, basically, is you have to go right near to the beam of light. And basically, that's how you essentially get able to transform back into your normal form. So, yeah, that's that. And there's another treasure room right here. I think it's probably best if I was able to go for normal mode this time, because I don't think I actually got enough coins for easy difficulty, but that's fine by me, so. And this time we need to able to look for this little monstrosity monster, like a one-eyed monster. And that's what appears to be on, I would say, the 6th slot. So in this case we'll pick that, and sure enough, we got that correct. Awesome stuff. Awesome, sweet stuff. And I think there appears to be likely a baseball glove or something like that, or a pitching glove. Well, at least as far as I can know about the forms of baseball for sure. But now we got the treasure though, so now let's go ahead and just, well, try to take on the boss. But before we get into that, we'll try to collect the insane amount of coins as we can, if we're able to keep up our coins counts. So because of that though, there's not much else I can talk about in terms of the forms of today for this point, guys. I do apologize for the actual commentary, it gets a little bit slightly iffy once in a while, and especially noticeable. I've already mentioned briefly when it comes to Wario Land 2 for a bit, but one thing that I do know for sure, that Wario can still able to actually do some sort of like an arm dash attack, which it kind of continues that tradition, which, you know, just like the forms in the previous 2 Wario Land games for sure. And also that Wario can able to do I would say a ground pound, very much like the forms of the previous 2 games for sure. Well, at least thankfully you don't need to require a power-up this time around though, unlike the other 2 games. So Wario just managed to able to get these abilities from the start, which it wasn't until when we get onto Wario Land 3, oh man, most of these Wario's abilities will be able to, well, be gone until whenever you're trying to able to complete certain things, so, but I digress. So, oh boy, a whole lot of coins, seriously, there's so many coins in this game. And I was gonna able to go into the boss fight until any moments later. Actually, I might as well able to hit on to the very first boss in the game, actually. Because I think I actually got enough coins to able to do this, so. Yeah, here's the first boss in the game, which appears to be, of course, the giant snake. And basically, your objective is pretty simple. Basically, it's the fact that whenever the giant snake just does that, basically, you have to jump on its head for about, I would say 6 times. Although, it has been a while since I actually played this, though, still. So, I think that's hit 3, and I think that's hit number 4, hit number 5, and this is hit 6. So, yeah, 6 hits, and he's a pretty easy, self-explanatory boss fight. If you somehow manage to get hit by you know, a giant snake, rather than killing you, but instead, they actually just manage to be able to take you upwards, and basically that it actually takes you to the forms of another alternative pathway, which, again, we'll talk more about that whenever we get onto the forms of the later levels that usually utilizes the forms of that system. That's, we'll talk more about it until then, so. But for now, let's go ahead and take on the forms of this particular, you know, goal minigame first. So, I'm guessing it'll be 8. There we go, 8. Awesome stuff. And I think with that being said, we're gonna have to end things off at this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Wario Land 2. Is the fact that we are moving on to the next story. That's what appears to be Story 2. So, yeah, it should be interesting. So I'll see you guys on Friday. Later, fellas.